Do you remember this scene? This is a scene where Pazu and Shita somehow managed to land on Laputa with a kite that got separated from Dola's aircraft called Tiger Moth. After they land, they go, "Yay!" Then they hug and roll on the grass. It's Pazu and Shita in that scene. Now, there's a long interview about this scene in this stylish magazine called Cut. The interview is super long. There, the interviewer told Miyazaki, "There's a scene in Laputa which I don't really get." And he referred to this scene. It's this. So, right here. He said, "I have one complaint about Laputa. That's when Pazu and Shita land on the castle and celebrate. They roll on the grass while they are tied together with a rope. Aren't they supposed to kiss in a situation like that? They even hug and look at each other." Hearing that, Miyazaki responded, "No, I think the movie did enough of that." "The movie did enough of what?" said the interviewer. Miyazaki said, "You know the kite scene?" But suddenly paused and added, "Oops, I've been told not to say things like this, but..." In the first draft, where Shita holds onto Pazu from the back inside the kite, Shita wasn't holding Pazu tightly enough. Pazu should be feeling her breasts on his back. That's why he has this confident look on his face. So I told the animator who drew this, "Did you think that far?" And he said, no. So I ordered him, "Imagine that and draw again." Then he did his best. The interviewer was like, "I didn't know it was such an erotic movie." Well, let me continue reading the article. "I didn't know it was such an erotic movie." Well, it's not that I'm hiding them intentionally. That kind of thing is necessary for movie making. It's not fashion like in Space Battleship Yamato, where the characters look at the camera when they hug. When I saw it, I was like, "What? So you guys look away from each other?" So it's a typical Miyazaki always dissing someone else's work when he explains his own work. So for this scene, the interviewer asked, "Why don't Pazu and Shita kiss here?" Then Miyazaki said, "Because instead of telling it, that kind of thing is already shown in the movie." That's probably what he meant by, "The movie did enough." That's the scene where Pazu and Shita get on this kite for observation and go up higher in the sky. Suddenly, there is a blast and it blows the kite away. Shita gets scared and holds onto Pazu tightly. Then, Pazu turns around to look at her in order to relax her, but his facial expression isn't strong enough. So, Miyazaki scolded the animator, "You don't get it, do you? Imagine a girl you love gets scared, hugs you and presses her small breasts onto you. You feel them on your back. And is this how your face looks in a situation like that? No, do it again." And when Miyazaki saw the second draft, he said, "That's better." So that's where the boy's confident look comes from. Men can only act reliable when they physically feel the reliance of women. Miyazaki said, "That's what anime is supposed to depict." So, Miyazaki's anime is erotic, but that's different from the cheap eroticism that we usually think of. I should have said this before, but Miyazaki is a man who hates something being cheap more than anything. Where was it? Oh, here. I discovered about a week ago when I was reading past interviews of Miyazaki endlessly. So, that's just Osamu Tezuka, is his signature phrase. He thinks of Tezuka, the great pioneer of manga, as his imaginary enemy. When someone says, "Why don't we develop the story like this?" he immediately snaps back, "That sounds like what Tezuka does, so no." Well, not that Tezuka would have really done what Miyazaki said. One of my favorite episodes is a discussion about what to do with the last scene of Nausicaa. In the last scene, we know a herd of Om run into Nausicaa, and she gets blown away by them and dies. Then she comes back to life with the phrase, "That person wearing a blue robe shall stand in a golden field." But Miyazaki had several different ideas. One idea was that after Nausicaa gets hit by Om and dies, Om take Nausicaa with them when they return to the toxic jungle. The idea indicates that Nausicaa may come back to life, but even so, she won't return to the human world. Both Om and Nausicaa abandon humans and return to the forest. The remaining humans used to think they could survive as long as Om didn't attack them. But they now realize that the true hope was Nausicaa. This ending proposes a question of what happens to humans when they lose hope. Miyazaki told this version to Takahata and said, "Oh, that ending will do." And Miyazaki answered, "No, that sounds like Tezuka's idea. I mean, I also think it's a pretty good ending." But Miyazaki rejected that idea because for him, it was too Tezuka-ish. Another idea Miyazaki came up with was that Om become adult insects. Those Om in the movie are larvas. Yeah, they're actually giant caterpillars. So after that climax scene with Nausicaa, the Om backs crack open and huge wings come out. Then they fly away to space. So Om don't destroy humans. Instead, they abandon the Earth and move to a different planet. Then the Earth pretty much becomes a place without any god. It's kind of like waiting for Godot. Then it eventually turns into an abandoned place like east of Eden. Miyazaki said all this in the interview in cut. But when the interview said, "Oh, that sounds like a great ending," he said, "No, it's not Miyazaki, it's what Tezuka would do." What I want to say here is that the part where he mentioned Tezuka is not that important. But it tells us how Miyazaki is a guy who isn't satisfied with normal ideas. He literally comes up with 50 to 60 ideas, but rejects 99% of them. He narrows them down until he goes, "This must be it." To do so, he refuses any ideas that are visually cool or appealing to the audience with no compromise. That's how much he refuses cheapness. So, back to where I was. That's why he never depicts eroticism as a cliche. But at the same time, he knows that excluding all erotic depictions is also nonsense. What he meant by "the movie did everything necessary" is that it's your fault for watching my movies and not understanding the eroticism because I did put it in there. But he thinks he's not stupid enough to visualize them in a straightforward way. So, what I wanted to talk about today is that people often say Laputa sends us a message to go back to nature, or that people cannot live apart from the land. But those are the lines spoken by the characters, not the themes. Those are all Tezuka stuff, which Miyazaki would refuse to do. Tezuka may have come up with ideas like, do humans really need technology? Humans should go back to nature. Technology needs to have the warmth of people, so the digital world is no good. Miyazaki would refuse them because it's what his imaginary enemy, Tezuka, would come up with. That's when he says, that's Tezuka stuff, so no, that's Miyazaki. So please think of Miyazaki as someone who wants a twist in anything he expresses.